speaker and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, continuing our discussion about identitarianism in a more serious way than the Lake Forest mayor's race. We talk a bit about the trans identitarianism as a social contagion, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. But the social contagion is not limited to the kids. Let me give you an example of this. Listen to this mom, courtesy of Libs of TikTok, talking about the identity of her kid and the row she is in with the school over the school's unwillingness to comply with her imposed identity on her kid, if you will.
The school district now is a nightmare. I go to enroll my child, and my kiddo is standing right there. I hand them the birth certificate, and I say, see right here, this is his sex. He is a boy. He goes by he, him. I had no issues at his past school, and I don't expect to have any issues here. And I swear, it was like Karen, the transphobic secretary, was just waiting on us that day. She said she wouldn't put my child in the school system as his name because it has to match a birth certificate. But again, had no issues at the last school. I told her I absolutely would not enroll my child as a female. And she said, you will and you are. She enrolled my child as a female, then sent mail to my house with my child's dead name on it. At this point, my child is supposed to start school on Monday and is enrolled in the system as a female. Every single teacher in the school knew about my child, and the students were told a little girl was coming to class. This is a visual representation of my mood. Like and follow for part 3.
And she held up a monkey doll, the monkey doll with the symbols, like the angry face. I don't know if her daughter is suffering from gender dysphoria or she's the victim of some sort of Munchausen by proxy.
Glad that's not my mom.
Chloe Cole, one more example.
Oh, yeah.
Chloe Cole is somebody we've reported on before, this young woman who transitioned and then detransitioned and has become an outspoken advocate for detransitioning and for kids who are gender confused to not be led down a primrose path by doctors and others with less than their best interests at heart. She sat down for an interview with Canadian psychiatrist Jordan Peterson and talked a little bit about where she is physically since her detransition. Pretty tough stuff. Take a listen.
I'll never have my breast back. A reconstruction will do nothing for me, and it might make things worse actually because I've had some complications pop up this year with the grafts. I have to cover them up with bandages, or else they'll. I don't know what's going on with them. I tried to consult my surgeon about it, and he didn't really investigate. He gave me advice that made the complications worse even, and actually temporarily gave me an infection. But I have to bandage up every day so that it doesn't like leak all over my clothing or bedding. And
Jesus,
from the hormones and blockers, I've been experiencing some joint pains, mainly in my arms, my legs, and my back. And
yep.
I still have issues with my urinary tract. I have to use the restroom pretty frequently, and I didn't even know that this was possible. This is like a pretty huge quality of life issue that I'm experiencing, and I'm just not really getting any help for it. And on top of that, I do hate to speak about it, but I'm experiencing sexual dysfunction at the age of 18. That's something that women usually go through when they're in their 40s to 50s.
Right.
How was I supposed to know?
How was I supposed to know? For more on this, pleased to be joined by our friend Lionel Shriver, contributor to The Spectator, best-selling author of We Need to Talk About Kevin, which was made into a good movie, and more recently, Abomination, selected essays from A Career of Courting Self-Destruction. Lionel Shriver, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's nice to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. You wrote a column recently, How We Created a Self-Hating Generation, that in part speaks to this identitarianism that we're discussing, and wanted to get your reaction to, for example, what you heard from Chloe Cole.
Well, I'm afraid that the ideologies that we're inflicting on children and adolescents these days are a collective cruelty. Not only are we tempting them to undertake surgery and hormone treatments that are not reversible, as they're often advertised, and potentially disfiguring their lives forever. But I think that we're presenting them with a version of self that is fundamentally what it is like to be a human being and grow up as a human being, that is ugly and deterministic and reductive. Identity politics tells them that all that really matters about them is their race and their sexual orientation. And the transgender movement tells them that only they know who they are and that they are already fully formed people when they're born, and that their only job is to tell us what they are. And I think this is unkind, because the truth is, what I remember from being a young child is a kind of formlessness and openness and uncertainty. You know, when at that age you're trying to figure things out, and the last thing you need to be told is that only you know who you are, and you have to tell us. It's a terrible burden. And I think both these movements are deterministic, and they're basically saying that you have no control over who you are. And I would contrast that to the version of identity that I grew up with, which was, it was something that you formed. Character was built. And over the years, you learn, you didn't just learn who you were. It wasn't just a discovery process, but it was an active process of deciding who you wanted to be, and therefore going out and achieving that. I wanted to be a writer, and I achieved that, and it was hard. And the fact it was hard was one of the things that made it so gratifying when I started being able to publish my work. I like the idea of identity as not only not defined by race and sexual orientation, but also as something that is active throughout your life, that it's a project, and it's a project that is never finished. And I don't expect to be exactly the same person in another 10 or 20 years any more than I feel as if I'm exactly the same person than I was 10 or 20 years ago. We change, and it's exciting and interesting, and it's something that over which you exert influence. Now, I certainly grant that that we all have a certain essential nature when we're born. We don't have total control. I use the example of, I was good at math until I hit second year calculus. I couldn't get anywhere. So I would never have made a nuclear physicist. There are a whole range of science-based futures that were closed off to me. But beyond that, I was able to develop the skills that were innate and to undertake self-improvement. And we've just abandoned that entire language.
You're right. I love this phrase from your piece about the cultural mavens. Their sole mission is to tell us what those selves already are with respect to kids. Self is a prefabricated house to which only its owner has a key. And so contrast that a little bit more, not so much necessarily with professional development, because professional development flows from character development and that character building process that kids undergo through school and parenting and interactions with their friends and life experience.
Yes. Falling in love, making commitments to other people, getting married, going through misery even. We used to find adversity character building. The Army used to advertise itself as character building, that yes, it was going to be difficult. Yes, it could at times be unpleasant, but on the other side you would come out a fuller and stronger human being. And I worry that in this more deterministic model of what it means to be a person, that we're stunting people, and we're also depressing them. Because I think young people told that, they just have to look inside and in their prefabricated house, look around and tell us what the layout is. And they look inside and they don't find much. Of course they don't. They're young. Nothing has happened to them yet. They haven't made any major life decisions. Why would they know who they are?
And adults
and the expectation that they have to know already everything about themselves, and they are already fully formed what they are, and they look inside themselves, and there isn't much there, and they get depressed, and they get anxious that there's something wrong with them.
And then the adults are here. We're told that we're here as adults only to affirm whatever they come up with, rather than to inform what they are thinking with some of our own judgments that are tempered through life experience and that same character building.
Yes, which is a total abdication of responsibility. I mean, adults no longer act like adults anymore. They subjugate themselves to children and just want to please the kids, and that is not kind. And you need to offer. It sounds old-fashioned, but we could stand a little more old-fashioned. We need to offer young people guidance and tell them more about the world and give them options, explain what some of the consequences are with different choices, but simply throwing people who don't know anything about the world onto that world with no indication of what's right and what's wrong, that's mean. I think it's actually mean.
You're right too. To this point, I prefer to spend time with me in the present than with me at 35. I know more. My sense of humor is sharper. Rather to my surprise, I'm humbler. Because you develop more perspective the more that you go through, and so why would you deprive your kid of that? I mean, it's just it's amazing to me that political pressure, the political pressure of a political party you affiliate with, for example, can lead so many to abandon so much that they could otherwise be conferring to their kids.
Well, I think we're going through a very grim political time, and for once I'm not talking about the divisions between Democrats and Republicans. I think that we are busy trying to not pass any judgment anymore, and that means that there is no moral order. And the destigmatization of everything from prostitution to obesity is not necessarily a good thing. Yes, being stigmatized is not a pleasant experience, but there's a reason that these things have been traditionally stigmatized. Stigma is really gentle manipulation, if you will. Yes, you can have a child out of wedlock. It's not illegal, but we're not going to think well of you. Of course, we're way beyond that. But I think that parents in particular, as well as the larger society, ironically has to get more judgmental, and to say, you know what, if you weigh 400 pounds, your health is going to be impaired, and you're probably not going to be as happy as if you weighed half that. But instead we have embraced an anything goes thing that clearly derives from my own upbringing. I grew up during the 60s and early 70s, and there was a whole movement toward permissiveness, and I think that permissiveness is now completely out of control. So it's my generation is responsible for initiating it.
We have a nihilism problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and then it cannibalizes itself. So we were talking about this earlier this week. On the one hand, you have leftists saying to criticize somebody for being fat is racist because and specifically targets black women because of their physiognomy and so on and so forth. So that's racist. On the other hand, we have the American Academy of Pediatrics recommending that fat kids that are pre-diabetic get on medication at 12 and have lap band surgery at 13.
Yeah, well, we are denying the reality of personal responsibility, and then when we have to live with the consequences of absence of personal responsibility, our answer is medication. It's not revising the behavior.
Well,
all behavior is okay as long as it hails from who you truly are.
Right.
Well, it's taking the easy way out, not teaching, self-discipline. Just take this pill; it'll get better. Get this surgery, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's a study out yesterday that antidepressants work about have about 15% of the time they have more impact than sugar pills. So sugar pills was the placebo. Antidepressants is the pharma solution to feeling blue, and yet the incremental effectiveness is 15%.
I think the effect is hugely one of the placebo.
Yeah.
And well, right, but precisely. And so, I mean, do you see any bright spots in terms of recognition in circles that we need to go back to the character building paradigm and get away from this nihilistic paradigm?
I don't see. I'm not happy on the adult front. At a certain point, I think young people themselves are going to have to get a grip, and I'm a little worried about Gen Z, but maybe the people coming up behind them will reject this whole ideology in the same way that generations traditionally do reject whatever was fashionable in their parents' time. I've been discouraged that the identity politics movement seems to have transferred between generations. And that's contrary to the standard model that, adolescents are rebellious and think everything that their parents go on about is rubbish. So,
yeah, they got a pill for
and
that rebellion.
I'd like to see a little more adolescent rebellion, because the ideology we're talking about, it seems new, but it isn't. It's been around for quite some time. It's just become more entrenched.
She is Lionel.
We need adolescents to start acting like proper teenagers.
It's kind of a funny way to put it. I like that, though. Yeah. Start being the rebellious teenagers we used to decry. Exactly. Lionel Shriver, contributor to The Spectator, best-selling author of We Need to Talk About Kevin, which it was made into a movie featuring Tilda Swinton that you should check out if you haven't. Most recently, the book Abomination, Selected Essays from a Career of Courting Self-Destruction. Lionel Shriver, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.